Welcome to our Curious Amalgam, the weekly podcast brought to you by the Antitrust Law section of the American Bar Association. Our Curious Amalgam explores the fascinating and increasingly overlapping world of competition, consumer protection, data protection, and privacy law. Each week, we bring you leading global experts on the most compelling issues of the day. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Our Curious Amalgam, the podcast from the American Bar Association Antitrust Law section. My name is John Roberti, and today's topic is, how do you connect to lead? Using social media to enhance your practice and become a leader. On our program most weeks, we delve into substantive law, and we think a lot about the hard legal issues that our members and our folks in the bar face. Today we want to do something a little bit different. We want to talk a little bit about how members of the bar can use an important tool, social media, to enhance their practice, to become better known, and to connect, and ultimately to lead. My co-host today is Anora Wang. Hi, Anora.
Hi, John.
Anora, what are we doing today?
We're talking about social media and marketing for the legal industry.
And why social media?
Well, social media is convenient, and social media gets people connected. A lot of people, professionals, lawyers, economists, scholars, they appear to be on Twitter and LinkedIn more and more. And people on social media engage in real-time conversations. They post links to their publications. They comment on ongoing legal battles, and they sometimes engage in debates, some of which are fun to watch.
So what do we hope to get out of the podcast today?
We hope to learn for the legal industry, for lawyers in general, how should they use social media? How can social media be effective in helping them in personal branding or reaching out to their target audiences?
All right. Well, who are our guests today?
We have two guests today, and both are very well-versed in marketing, especially for the legal industry. First, we have Valentina Escobar-Gonzalez, who is founder of Beyond Engagement, a social media solutions company since 2012. Valentina helps professionals and small business engage with their customers online, and she has been featured on marketing podcasts and marketing virtual conference. And then we also have Nancy Merland, who is president of the Merland Marketing and Social Media, which is a company that helps lawyers, law firms, and legal marketers grow by engaging marketing strategies. Nancy is also a host of the podcast and Amazon Alexa flashing briefing titled Legal Marketing Minutes.
Great. Well, Valentina, Nancy, welcome to the program.
Well, Nancy and Valentina. So first of all, I had my version of why social media. What about you? Do you have a story and a key concept that you would like to share with our audience? Why social media becomes so important nowadays?
Well, I think we've gotten past the point where it's a novelty or it's just fun to do. And, maybe I should spend a few minutes here and there. It's to the point where your clients and other influencers, media, journalists who you wish would write about you, but don't, your referral sources and all of these people, they're on social media. So it's past the point of, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to do this, to the point of, we don't have any choice. We really need to be there, or we're going to be left out of some pretty important discussions.
Well, Nancy, you mentioned something called influencers. Is that something lawyers ought to be? Should we aim to become legal influencers? What's the goal? What's the goal for lawyers or legal professionals in general to be on social media?
Well, absolutely. And when you think about the definition of an influencer, I mean, this isn't the formal definition, but somebody who is going to influence a situation. I mean, lawyers are definitely influencers in the most positive way, because clients, always think about it from a client perspective. And that is that a client is always looking for a lawyer to either solve a problem that they have or help them avoid a problem that they have. So in essence, they're looking to them to influence a situation. So lawyers can definitely become influencers by using social and digital media, because they're out there using these media and helping others to see that, yes, they can actually, not giving legal advice on the internet, but yet they're coming across as someone who can influence a situation in their clients' lives.
Valentina, would you give us your version of the goal for legal professionals to be on social media? What other than maybe have a voice, what other goals should legal professionals have to be on social media?
Well, they have to be active on social media and also be consistent. I was reading a really interesting statistic that LinkedIn makes up more than about 50% of all social media traffic to business websites and blogs. So taking the time to be active on LinkedIn not only, but engage with others, share articles from associations, from relevant fields in your niche, and then sharing that on LinkedIn. And then if you have an opportunity, write a blog post, post it on LinkedIn Pulse, and that really does get your audience reach higher because you have a platform where people are finding those topics with keyword searches and hashtags.
Right. So Valentina, I heard LinkedIn posts and articles to be posted on LinkedIn. Well, in my experience, that's more of things to be consumed by your peers, your or other professionals in legal or relevant industries. So that, I guess, gets to the question that we play multiple roles on social media. We face potentially our clients, but also our peers. So it touches the question of personal branding, right? Is this something that we ought to think through before get on social media? Should I have some strategy, some particular images that I want to have on social media all thought out before I get on?
That's a great question. And one thing that the biggest tip that I learned from Mark Schaefer, and he had a great blog post called Discover Your Difference. And the biggest practice that I saw was answering this very critical question before you even get started on social media. And the question is, only I or only we, if you are in the branding or marketing department for the law firm, but what is it that separates you from other people that are also doing the same thing? That's why I was linking back to LinkedIn, because with LinkedIn, I might be posting about marketing all the time, and people that are not in marketing and a different industry see that I'm the thought leader because I'm always posting relevant articles.
Right. The concept of only we, that's something that we heard from Mark Schaefer at some point earlier this year. But maybe, Nancy, you want to also help elaborate that a little bit. So what is this concept of only we? So is there some key questions that we ought to ask ourselves, or that's something we need to think about before getting on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I don't want to do is for lawyers to freeze and not get on social media because they haven't gone through, a lengthy discussion about personal and professional branding. And I have and we can link to it if you want, but I have worksheets where you define your personal brand and one where you define your professional brand that are very quick and easier for lawyers to go through. And I developed these because I think it is really important to have in mind what you want to be known for and what are your personality traits. And when you get in the thick of it, you mentioned Twitter a little bit ago and how these conversations and news really are just flying in every direction on Twitter, but it can be on LinkedIn. It can really be anywhere. I mean, it's happening on Facebook as well. Not so much on Instagram. When you're in the thick of it and you are tempted to jump in and lash out at somebody, have you first decided what your personal and professional brand is so that you've decided in advance advance, you know what? I am somebody who jumps into the fray, and that does benefit my practice? Or have you decided in advance, no, you know what? I stay away. I stay away from politics. I stay away from lashing out at people. That is not my personality. So I absolutely think it's really important to go through a bit of a branding exercise, whether it's formally through, this practice that I mentioned I do, or it's in your head, so that you understand what you stand for and how you want to be known. I mean, what kind of information are you going to put out there? Who are your target audiences? You talked about that. There are different people that every lawyer needs to influence. To go back to our discussion, it's who are your clients? Who are your potential clients? Who are the bloggers you wish would link back to you? Who are the journalists and the trades that you wish would write about you? I mean, there are so many people, referral sources, there's so many people. So to give each of those a little bit of thought to say, you know what, I need to produce content that's going to appeal to Nancy because she's a really good referral source for me. Or I need to produce something for, you can even have one person in one client company in mind who you'd like to have as a client, and what impacts that person's company and their business, and write specifically for them. So yes, I think a lot of that discussion, a lot of that thought process does need to take place at some point.
Well, as risk averse as lawyers already are, what you have cautioned us about seems to make social media a scary place. Should if I really want to target a specific individual, specific potential client, why do I use social media? Why don't I engage some more direct communication channels? Is that something that you get asked about all the time? What do I get out of being public, being on social media, and then still being, worry the whole image problem the whole time? So what's the extra value that I would get from social media?
Well, I think it's the fact that, and it's interesting, your question is one that I do hear all the time in law firms. And there's a little bit of bristling sometimes when I'll go in for a training, because some lawyers think I'm going to say, forget face-to-face. You don't need to do any of that anymore. It's all social. It's all digital. And they're usually kind of surprised when I say, please don't ever abandon your face-to-face and your personal one-to-one interactions. All this does is really complement what you're doing. What's different about it is that there is no way a lawyer can be in every place he or she wants to be at any given time. There could be 50 people across the country who that lawyer would like to influence. It is physically impossible, and the time it would take is also a challenge to really be able to have contact with each of those people efficiently. So yes, still try to do that on a face-to-face basis, but make sure that when they get off that phone call with you, or they leave you at that business after hours, or your section conference, that when they go to Google and check you out a little bit more, you're going to have something there to back up what they just saw, either reinforce or say, oh, I didn't know that about her. Then, yeah, well, that's interesting. So it really is a great, all of these tools are really just great complements to face-to-face interaction.
That's great. I think that goes back to my point about social media being convenient, being real-time conversations. So this might be a little personal question for you, Nancy. Do you have good examples that you would praise as example? Like that's good practice on social media. That's something that lawyers who aspire to be on social media ought to watch as example and learn from.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think, and I don't see this done enough. I harp on it quite a bit. So I'm glad to see a little bit of movement made, but we need to see more. And that's the interaction and the funny thing is I've been saying this for about 10 years, that we need to do less broadcasting and just promoting what we've written, or promoting where we're going next to make a presentation, or the wonderful things that we've done, not only for ethics reasons, which I care deeply about, but also because who wants to hear all of that if they don't know you first? So what I recommend is take some time and jump into conversations, add value to them, add perspective, share comments, share posts or tweets or articles that others have written or posted, and add some value to it as you're sharing it. Don't just hit retweet or just don't hit share and let it go. Say, you know what, I met Valentina last week at a conference, and what she just wrote in this article is something that I think would be good for you to read. So all of a sudden, add your perspective, but I always say, spend more time promoting others and adding value to others' content than you do promoting your own. And it will be amazing. You will be amazed at how quickly your reputation as not a curator and just a giving, caring person will grow.
Right. Valentina, do you have some advice for the do's and don'ts? Like, what are things that lawyers on social media should be careful with?
That's a tricky question because I'm not an attorney, but I can tell you from a marketing perspective is to, again, to be consistent. Like I said earlier, share media articles, add your 2 cents. Just like Nancy had said, when I share stuff from the industry, I say, okay, I agree with this bullet point, or I agree with number 2, or I see number 5 being something I see a lot of here, with business owners. Just being consistent, being top of mind, and like what she's sharing what others have to say as well.
That's a good tip. What about some biggest faux pas that we could have on social media? What are some don'ts that we should be careful with?
Is this Nancy or Valentina? Which one?
Either one. We can start.
Is LinkedIn when someone tries to connect with you and immediately tries to sell you on a private message?
Yeah, talk about annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Valentina. Don't try to sell people via direct message. There's nothing that turns them off quicker. And, in order to go back to your question about ethics, I usually tell lawyers, whatever you can't do in person, you really cannot do that online either. So do not dispense legal advice. Don't establish, a attorney-client relationship with somebody. Again, the same things you cannot do in person. If the state or ABA ethics rules tell us that we cannot use past performance as a predictor of future success, don't do that online. If your state doesn't allow testimonials, and there are a couple, including mine, states that don't allow those, don't talk about your other cases, because you could get yourself in hot water. And what attorneys don't always realize is that the complaints to the bar are not necessarily by clients and potential clients. They're by other attorneys who are thinking, how dare you degrade the profession by going against these ethical restrictions? So if you can't do it in person, definitely don't do it online. So, and again, just go back to the personal professional branding. If it's not your personality, don't try to be somebody that you're not. And also, you know what? If you make a mistake or you say something silly, or nobody replies to you, or they don't share your stuff, they don't click like on it, they don't retweet it, whatever, don't think that you're a failure. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's okay to be kind of the awkward person for a little. I'm awkward, and I've been running around this space for 9 years now, 10 years. It's okay. Sometimes I say odd stuff, or I'll be on this podcast with you and I might use a word that's like, what the heck did she say? And you know what? It's all right. You're not going to say anything that's going to make others condemn you. As long as you stick by all the ethical restrictions that we know we need to stick by.
Right. Our Curious Amalgam is also considering maybe to be on social media. If we do you think that's a good idea? Is there something that you would want us to, as you already given us a ton of good advice, but that's a thumbs up. That's a good idea.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I think if you have decided that a podcast is worth your while, and that all of the resources when I looked at the website, you have your daily digest, you have the Antitrust Law Journal, Antitrust Source, you have the Antitrust magazine with a circulation of about 9,000, and then you also have your enforcement tracker, your app. if you have gone to the extent of deciding that those are valuable, those are marketing. And social media really is marketing, and it's communication to other human beings. And all of these things that I mentioned that you are already doing, that's content that can be actually repurposed via social media. So yeah, I would definitely put yourself out there. Just give it some thought, in advance, and decide what it is you might like to do, who's going to do it, how often you're going to do it, how you're going to respond to people, who you're going to follow, are you going to follow? And I wouldn't hold back.
Well, Nancy, Valentina, this has been very, very helpful. I want to maybe shift gears just a little bit and ask you, maybe starting with Valentina. Valentina, tell us something about yourself that we wouldn't know if we just knew you professionally.
Well, I have little children. This is something that maybe a couple of you would applaud before. I've never posted a picture of my children on social media. And everyone gives me a hard time because aren't you a social media consultant? But I have never posted a picture of my children on social media.
Have you ever posted a picture of a pet?
Yes.
Okay.
And I mentioned that in my in my bio. I'm a mom, and I'm a chocolate lab mom.
And you never forced the pet to dress up in like human clothes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He's worn a pumpkin Halloween costume. He's worn a raincoat. He's wearing a gator bandana. I'm a big Gators fan, so that's against his will, possibly.
Nancy, how about you? Tell us something about yourself that we wouldn't know if we just knew you professionally.
Well, first, Valentina, I'm a lab mom too. I have 2 yellow labs, so they are all over.
I saw that.
Yeah, they're all over my Instagram and all over Facebook. Not so much on Twitter. Something about me. All right, this is going to be a weird one, and I risk everybody listening to this thinking I am just the biggest oddball that just should be, in a booth at the state fair. I can write backwards with the wrong hand, and as if that's not weird enough, I'm left-handed naturally. So pretend you have a piece of paper and you have pens in your right and left hand. Technically, if I'm left-handed, I should be going forward. But I can write to the right with my right hand, to the left with my left hand, the same thing at the exact same time.
And I just want you to realize that is actually the second comment we've had from our Curious Amalgam guest on secret handwriting skills. So
really?
I don't know what it is about our podcast. But now it's time, I think, for our last segment, which we call the Curious Hat.
And now it's time for the Curious Hat.
In my left hand, I have an actual hat, which has actual questions in it. Anora is going to pull out 2 questions, and we're going to ask one to each of you. Valentina, I'll start with you. What is the best thing about your generation? What do you think is the best thing about your peers?
My peers, that I feel, and I see this a lot in publications, but I think millennials, we're hard workers. At least the ones that I hang out with, we're working hard. We're going in early. We are working late. We work too much. We don't even take enough vacation time. There's a misconception about millennials, and I think people need to know that we are hard workers.
Agree.
That's funny because you will hear every non-millennial grumble about how millennials just don't do that. So we ought to have maybe
I think it might be different because I'm daughter of an immigrant, so that might be different. That I've seen my parents work so hard, and I have other friends that are kids of immigrants, so they worked hard like their parents.
Well, yeah, I hope my boss is hearing this. Millennials work really hard, including myself.
Okay, Nancy, this one is for you.
It better be good. I've been listening to your other episodes, and I'm really nervous about this.
Well, if you could be fluent in a new language tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh, Spanish. I mean, I know when to ask you when your birthday is, and I know how to say I'm crazy in the head, or that you're crazy in the head. But I just think we have so many people that we need to communicate with that are in our country that I would love to just be able to fluently communicate with them. So yeah, that's an easy one for me.
All right. Well, And that is the end of our show. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of our Curious Amalgam, a competition, consumer protection, data protection, and privacy law podcast. It is produced and shared around the globe by the ABA's Antitrust Law Section. The opinions expressed by the participants in this podcast are their own and do not necessarily represent those of their employer or other organization. If you like what you heard and would like to become a member of the American Bar Association, please check out what the Antitrust section has to offer at ambar.org/antitrust. If you have suggestions for topics or are interested in participating in a future episode, please reach out to us at ourcuriousamalgam@americanbar.org. Until next time, thank you for listening.